This is Branden with Extreme Networks. We're in the process of rebuilding my lab, and we're going to go ahead and take a few more steps now that we've added some devices in here. Let's notice that we're not capturing any AP data here. If I go and look at my alarms, I do see one controller failed SSH connection. So when we added the controller, we used the default SNMP credential. So let's see how we correct that. If we look at the SNMP profile, you'll notice we're using CLI credential default. And if we look at the default CLI credential, it's using admin no password with telnet. The wireless controller does require SSH. So let's create a new SNMP profile. So we'll call it controller v3 profile, right? And we'll create a new CLI credential and call it controls for CLI, username, admin, SSH, and I'll just put my password in all three of these. Cool. And we'll still be able to use the default SNMP v3 creds, as you can see here. So that won't be any different. So we'll just go ahead and auth priv all three of those and save. Okay, now if we go over here to device mapping and we select our wireless controllers, we will pull down the profile selection right here and select our new controller v3 profile. We might have to hit a refresh. Let's see. All right, let's just save, come back to profiles. And there we go. We'll apply that guy, hit save. There we go, and we'll just come back here and notice we don't have any APs listed here. Go over here and refresh. And let's see here. See if we're getting some data now. Might take a second, but let's hop back over here. Oh, notice our alarm cleared. Get that. And if we go to our alarms, we don't have that alarm message about the SSH issue, right? So get back here. There's our active AP right there. Cool. Great. So we're getting some data there. Just another housekeeping thing, since we're playing around here a lot. One of the things I like to do, go over here to our administration section options and web server. And I'll just go ahead and extend this to, I don't know, 20 hours. Doesn't matter. It's my home lab, so I'm going to tinker around with it a lot, and I get tired of being logged out often. But you can set this to whatever you want. Okay, so we're going to go to control and play around with NAC a little bit. So let's start here under the policy tab and use over here on tools our authentication configuration wizard. And we'll just add our two devices in here, the controller and the switch. It's asking us what ports we want to enable authentication on. We want our pre-shared key wireless network. And let's just go ahead and select all of our switch ports there. Actually, I take that back. I'm a cautious tester, right? So let's just select one port for testing. How about that? So we're going to click Add Ports. Cool. And enable multi-auth and enable MAC auth. We're not doing .1x at this time. We will have to set a password for MAC auth. Doesn't really matter what it is, but I'll just make a password. Just so you know, if you had forgotten this step, it would have presented a message to you reminding you when you got to that next step. So We set the global authentication settings on step 3. This is step 4, where we set the port specific authentication settings, and we want active default roles. So in other words, authentication's active, and we're assigning a default role if you fail authentication. Mac authentication enabled, and we're going to click finish. So it's going to ask you here some questions. So we selected some specific ports, but it will do some pretty cool things. Like if it detects a neighbor, like LLDP or CDP detected a neighbor, it will consider an inner switch port, and it will not turn on authentication on those ports. But I was pretty prescriptive about how I set this up, so I'm going to tell it to use the modes that I specified in the wizard, um, and not change any of the others. Okay. And let's see, error setting off mask. Yep. So this is my wireless controller. That Mac Auth password was not necessary on the wireless controller, only on the switch. So it's basically saying that it skipped that one because it is not going to take. Okay. So we enabled Mac Auth, and we should start seeing some end systems populating here. Yep. And we are. So on port 2 of our switch, we're seeing some of my devices. I have a Cisco switch connected to that, and hanging off the Cisco switch is my AV receiver in my wiring closet for my home stereo. So we're capturing some data there. So good info. And on our next step, we will go through the process of enabling a captive portal. I'm not seeing any wireless data here yet. Let me go hop over to my controller and take a look at our WLAN service. And yep, so it didn't actually enable authentication on that SSID. I'm going to go ahead and do it. So we're not actually setting an authentication mode here. We're just going to enable Mac-based authentication. I just want to discover the devices that are out there, right? And so I'll select my NAC radius server, right? And I'll enable radius accounting. So the same server. Oh, I didn't set it up as an accounting server. Oh, there it is. Yep. Cool. Okay. I want to select these TLVs. Because it'll give me some additional data. So I'll go ahead and actually I'll leave off zone port support. Enable these that I checked. I have some specific reasons behind this. I won't get into too much detail, but just go ahead and enable these, and we'll get some capture some additional detail and collect accounting information. Okay. All right. So now that we've done that, if I refresh here, we should start seeing some additional devices populating in here, and it might take a little time, but they'll start coming in as devices come onto the wireless network. Let's force the process a little bit since we're not seeing anything yet. I'll come over here to reports. Let's see. And oh, I don't have any clients on right now, actually. Interesting. So we won't actually see any data, but we'll have some devices attached, and they'll populate in here. We'll capture some cool information, like operating system, manufacturer type, and all that great detail. So that's handy info, and it'll show us the AP that they're attached to and everything. And cool. And so we'll pick this back up on the next video, do some captive portal configuration. Thanks.